Hello, and welcome to another episode of Movies, they're pretty good. I'm your host, Travis Dudding, and today I am joined by, once again, my brother, Tyler. You want to say hi?
Hey, everybody, and glad to be here, and boy, it's a calamity ever so great, which occurred when two holidays met by mistake.
Yep. Then if that didn't clue you, or the title of the episode didn't clue you in, we're talking about Nightmare Before Christmas today, which Tyler has the DVD copy that we got when?
This is the 2008 copy, the 15th anniversary copy. We used to have the early 2000s copy that had the Touchstone logo version of the movie.
Yes. And we also had it on VHS and everything. We're in our 30s, so we we had a lot of stuff like that. And speaking of being in our 30s, this movie turned 30 this year, right?
Yup.
Yep.
So the genesis of Nightmare Before Christmas is Tim Burton actually started out as one of the new batch of animators at Disney after Don Bluth left to create his own animation studio. And he did some animation on the character of Vixie, the Sandy Dungeon character in Fox the Hound, and did some concept sketches for this little movie called The Black Cauldron, which somehow didn't do well.
Yeah, that's one of Disney's bigger bombs, right? And very obscure. Not a lot of people have seen that one. I think, besides the newest two, Wish and Strange World, I think the only Walt Disney Animation Studios film I haven't seen.
Yeah, and to add insult to injury, it lost to the Care Bears movie.
Yeah.
But Tim Burton actually did two shorts while at Disney. One was Vincent.
And that was a stop motion, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's German expressionist combined with Dr. Seuss and narrated by Vincent Price himself.
Yes. Hence the name Vincent.
Yeah. And to all you diehard Disney fans, you know him as the voice of the Professor Radigan from the Great Mouse Detective, and he did the narration for this attraction over in Europe called Phantom Manor.
And for those not well versed in Disney park knowledge, what is Phantom Manor to the more what would people know it as here in the States?
It's basically France's equivalent to the Haunted Mansion.
Yes.
Which correlates with today's movie in a weird way if you've been to the park since 2001.
Yeah. Yep. So, all right, let's get right into it. We're talking about Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, released in 1993. Do you know what month or date it came out, or?
I think it came out October of 1993. It's based... And you just see why some people consider this somewhat of a sleeper hit.
Yeah. Because did it do well financially in the box office, or was it more of like a cult hit upon VHS release?
I think it became a cult hit on VHS release, but it wasn't. And as decades go by, the popularity of it grew to the point where you cannot enter a Hot Topic without seeing Nightmare Before Christmas merch.
Yeah, big hit with Disney goths, for sure. But one thing I wanted to note before we get started in the actual movie is that it's interesting that this is probably one of the most well-known, like when people think Tim Burton, they think Nightmare Before Christmas, and people know Tim Burton as a director, but he did not direct this one.
the directing duties go to Henry Selick because Tim Burton was busy doing Batman Returns and pre-production of Ed Wood.
Yes, correct. All right, so should we get right into it?
Absolutely.
All right. So, right at the beginning of the movie, we're opening on some narration. Who's doing the narration? Is it Danny Elfman or someone else?
It's Edward Ivory.
Okay. Yes. But Danny Elfman on the soundtrack does the narration, right?
No, you're thinking of Nightmare Revisited. The soundtrack was done by Captain Picard himself, Patrick Stewart.
Yes, you're right. I'm more... what I would listen to is usually the Nightmare Revisited soundtrack. That's where they got a bunch of different bands of different styles of music to do covers of the Nightmare Before Christmas songs, and I'll talk a little bit about each of those as we get into the actual songs in the movie. Like I said, got some narration coming in. Tyler kind of said a little bit of what that sounds like in the beginning of the episode. And we open on this grove of trees, and there's a circle in the middle of them, and each of the trees has a symbol of a different holiday. And of course, we're starting out in Halloween Town, because movie is basically, if you don't know, I doubt anyone doesn't know, but if you don't know, it's a combination of Halloween and Christmas, basically, where two holidays collide, like you said.
Yeah, which is the emphasis of Haunted Mansion Holiday, which is a seasonal overlay of Disneyland's version of the Haunted Mansion.
Yes.
And to our viewers and or listeners in Japan, you might know it as Haunted Mansion Holiday Nightmare.
Ah, so that gave it a little bit of a different name. But that's the only other park besides Disneyland California that does Haunted Mansion Holiday, correct?
Yes. They planned on doing it in Florida, but Haunted Mansion Holiday Nightmare in Tokyo gives you a taste of what could have been the Florida's version.
Yeah. All right. So as soon as we go through that jack-o'-lantern door in the tree, we get the first song of the movie. This is a musical, by the way. This is Halloween. And great song. It's great in the movie. Great cover by Marilyn Manson on the Nightmare Revisited soundtrack. And I think a few other bands have done. I think even Panic at the Disco did a "This Is Halloween" for one of the fireworks shows at Disneyland, something like that. But that one's kind of hard to find. But great song, and basically the purpose of the song is to kind of visually introduce each of the residents of Halloween Town. We kind of get a look at what everyone's deal is, and yeah. Anything you want to add on that song?
Yeah, it's pretty catchy, especially around the Halloween season. And speaking of the fireworks shows at Disneyland, it actually originated at Disney World as Hallowishes.
Okay.
And it was copied over into Disneyland as the Halloween Spectacular. And boy, the few times we saw that Halloween fireworks show, they really did a cool job adding our hero, and one character in particular that we get to later is shown flying above the castle.
And who is that?
It's Zero.
Yes, that's Jack's ghost dog with the conveniently red glowing nose, just like another famous holiday character.
And oddly enough, the Zero's nose is in the shape of a little jack-o'-lantern.
Is it?
Yeah.
Never noticed that.
Yeah, because watching it on coming from people who watch it on the CRT TVs.
Oh, yeah. You can't get any of those little details on those old CRTs.
Yeah.
Yep, so we get we get everyone introduced in that song. At the end of it, everyone's just praising Jack, like, oh, we did it, like, you're the best, like, thanks for making Halloween great again. And But we see, like, as he kind of leaves away from the crowd, that they're like, that he's kind of bored with Halloween. And he's, like, kind of down in the dumps about it. And then just like, oh, every year it's the same and everything like that. And that leads us right into our next song.
Jack's Lament.
Jack's Lament. But before we get to that song, one thing to note, the next most important character after Jack himself is Sally. And we see her kind of like off to the side while everything's happening, and she's kind of watch everything from afar. But then motorized wheelchair bound Dr. Finkelstein comes up and
guess what? You might recognize the voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's none other than the late great William Hickey.
Yes.
That you might recognize as Uncle Lewis from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yes, he is the one who ignites the Christmas tree with the cigar, and yeah, and it gets blown away by the sewage gas explosion.
Yeah, because of Cousin Eddie.
Yeah, he was dumping his the sewage from the RV in there.
Yeah. Okay, this was one of our choices between this and that movie.
Yeah, but we figured we'd go with this one because it's the 30th anniversary this year. So
yeah, and another known thing about Sally, you might recognize her voice. It's Catherine O'Hara.
Mm-hmm.
She was the mom in Beetlejuice, and the mom from the first two Home Alones.
Yep.
I think this is give her a different kind of character other than the mom.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, great performance from her. We see that they that he's trying to like keep her back at the house, and she's like, no, like I don't want to do that. But she's also basically a doll that's like full of leaves and sewn together, and so she just undoes the stitch in her arm, and so that way she can get away from him. And then we get into Jack's Lament, and this is kind of the musical version of like, oh, like every year it's the same. I'm bored with everything. I want something new. Great song, great visuals in this. I love the like little like curvy mountain that he's standing on with the silhouetted against the moon. Like the moon is huge too.
Yeah, which is actually the image that is the poster for this film, and also the VHS tape.
Yep.
As in the clamshell.
Oh yeah, those good old giant plastic clamshell VHS cases.
Yeah, and there is another known thing about Jack. The voice.
Mm-hmm.
Jack actually has two voices.
Yeah.
One speaking and one singing.
And this was pretty common for a lot of animated movies back then and prior, correct?
Yeah, basically Aladdin did that.
Yeah.
And the speaking voice of Jack is Chris Sarandon, who you remember as Prince Humperdinck from Princess Bride. And he was also the... who does he play in Child's Play?
Chris Humperdinck?
No, Chris Sarandon.
Oh, Prince Humperdinck. Chris Sarandon. I think he's the cop who eventually is helping the mom once Chucky attacks him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I did watch that one this last Halloween, like on Halloween. So if I'm trying to piece together who looks like Prince Humperdinck, it's that guy, I think.
Yeah, and the singing voice is composer Danny Elfman.
Yes. Yep. Famed composer Danny Elfman, also the singer from Oingo Boingo. But yeah, has he done all, or at least he's done most of Tim Burton's movies. But yeah, great composer, as well as a few other things too, not just Tim Burton stuff.
He did. He worked with Barry Sonnenfeld on Men in Black.
Yes, correct.
And Matt Groening on The Simpsons.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's probably the most famous piece of music that most people would recognize as the Simpsons theme song.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So, anything else you want to add on the Jack's Lament song in the cemetery?
Yeah, it's I think it's pretty unique and nice to because it's there's going to be a total of there's going to be more songs to come.
Oh yeah. Oh, and then anyone keeping track of the Nightmare Revisited version, that one is done by the All American Rejects. So after the song is done, he kind of heads out into the woods. The whole time he was singing, Sally was again kind of like watching him from afar and everything. So she heads back to her house with Dr. Finkelstein. This is where you find out that he made her basically, Finkelstein, Frankenstein, and that type of thing. And he sews her arm back on. You find out that she always poisons him so she can get away for the night.
Yeah, deadly nightshade.
Yep. The deadly nightshade you slipped me wore off, Sally. All right?
Yeah.
Yep. That's how you know that. Let's see. Oh yeah, we cut back to Jack walking through the woods with Zero. Pretty funny gag where he takes one of his own ribs off and throws it for Zero to catch it, because he's a dog.
Oh, and well-known fact, you know how Zero appeared transparent?
Mm-hmm.
They did this beam split effect, kind of similar, like a filmmaker's equivalent to the Pepper's Ghost effect.
Got it.
In the Haunted Mansion. Best example of that effect was the ballroom.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the ballroom in the Haunted Mansion ride. But Pepper's Ghost effect, that's been around for, since the Houdini days, pretty much, right?
Yeah, and really got popular under the use of all the Imagineers at Disney.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right, moving on. So Jack finds the trees that we saw in. Oh wait, no, I skipped a scene.
Yeah, the bit with the mayor.
Yes, so we see it's the next morning after Halloween. Everyone's all worn out and just kind of hanging out. The mayor is heading up to Jack's house to start planning next year's Halloween. Literally November 1st. He's already worried about it. Which I guess if you think of Halloween as the equivalent of Christmas, then in Santa mythology, Santa is working since December 26th, basically, to start next Christmas, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the mayor's heading up there. One interesting thing about him is that his face turns completely around 180. And it's basically the joke behind that is that he is a two-faced politician. Correct?
Yeah, basically Tim's satire on politicians.
Yeah, and he does even have a line in there, which I think is really funny, because he's knocking on the door, and he's like, Jack, you home? And he's like, Jack, please, I'm only an elected official. I can't make these decisions by myself. And, he's all worried, and he ends up falling down the stairs, and the zombie jazz band basically tells him that he's not home, and he hasn't been home all night.
And oddly enough, with Haunted Mansion Holiday, you see the band out the window in the portrait gallery. The portrait hallway after the stretching room.
Yes, and that's still part of the queue, right? That's before the actual ride starts.
Yeah, before you step into the doom buggies.
Yes. Okay, so now Jack stumbles upon the trees that we saw in the beginning. This is where we see there's a Christmas tree door, there's a turkey door for Thanksgiving, there's an Easter egg for Easter.
Which would lead to a gag later.
Yes, exactly. But immediately mesmerized by the Christmas tree and just starts walking slowly towards it. He's like, what is this place? This is something new. Which is what he was looking for. That's why he sang a whole song about being bored with Halloween, is that he's looking for something new. Kind of is hypnotized by this door, walks closer to it. It he opens it, or it comes open on its own?
Yeah, he opens it.
That's right. He opens it, turns one of the Christmas balls on the tree, and then that's the doorknob, and then ends up getting sucked in. And then this is where we get he ends up in Christmas Town. He's in the snow. He lands in the snow. He could look down the hill, and there's this like beautiful Christmas village. And this
very
is where
Dr. Seuss like.
Yes, yeah, very Grinch-esque. But this is where we get our third song. What's this?
Yeah.
And one thing that's great about this one is that he's just obviously amazed by this new concept, this new holiday that he's never heard of. And but there's a lot of like jokes within the lyrics about like, oh, there's children throwing snowballs instead of throwing heads, and just a lot of like we get like the weirdness of Halloween, but said like it's normal, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in this that's very Addams Family, like bad is good type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm surprised that Tim Burton didn't direct that movie.
Yeah, but I think those turned out perfect, the way they were with Barry Sonnenfeld.
Yeah, and the great acting in those two movies. Our definitive Gomez is always going to be Raul Julia.
Yeah.
A.K.A. Aram Fingal.
Oh, that is
because our
real deep cut.
Yeah. For all you Misties listening or watching, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, for those who don't know, he's referencing the show Mystery Science Theater 3000, where it's two robots and a human watching bad movies, and you can see like the silhouette, like you're watching that with them in a theater. Great show, love it.
Yeah, and the episode in question is Overdrawn to the Memory Bank.
Yeah, so one of Raul Julia's last films, not his last one, because that was Street Fighter, correct?
Yeah.
So one of his last films was a
Addams Family Values.
But so before that?
Yeah.
Okay. Timeline aside, a movie that he did besides these other like high grossing, great, well done movies. I'm not saying that Street Fighter was well done, but it was very popular.
Yeah.
Was a made for TV shot on videotape movie called Overdrawn at the Memory Bank, and it's
very confusing,
very bonkers. It's basically he gets like sucked into Casablanca at some point, and it's really weird. But we're not doing an episode on that. We're doing it on Nightmare Before Christmas. So we get the What's This song. Do you have anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, it's basically Danny Elfman trying to make a modern version of this tongue twister song by Gilbert and Sullivan called Modern Major General.
Got it. And what musical is that from?
The Pirates of...
Pirates of Penzance?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen that. But I know that title is just banging around up here. The Nightmare Revisited soundtrack version is done by the band Flyleaf. So at the end of his song, he sees the title of the town, or the name title, the town's name. He sees a sign that says Christmas Town. We see a door open, and we see the silhouette of Santa. He's looking thick with two C's and everything. And he's like, So he's like super intrigued now. Like, okay, like this place is great. How do I get in on this? We see back at Halloween Town, everyone's like, the mayor's about to start this search party to look for Jack. Oh yeah, we see that Sally is going to poison Dr. Finkelstein again. She's making a soup for him, and she's putting in deadly nightshade. She's using frog's breath to mask the odor, correct?
Yeah, but it's very bitter, and I can assume similar to Animuses, I believe that the smell is supposed to be like a scented candle that you left burning too long. Yeah,
Yeah.
she does say, hence why bitter.
Yeah, she pours it in. She's like, "Oh, it's bitter," and then she's looking for the worm's wort to kind of like even out the smell. So she gives it to him. He's immediately suspicious. He's like, "Okay, I smell the frog's breath." Like, so that makes it suspicious so I'm not going to eat anything until you try it. And she knocks the spoon out of his hand so that way she could do a switcheroo with a trick spoon that has holes in it. And so she pretends to eat it, and he's like,
"Oh, and the soup in the bowl, that's actually a disc to go with the stop motion."
"Oh, I see."
Yeah, there's little hints of detail. And how the mouth movements of these characters were done. How they did it for Jack was so much replacement heads with different expressions and mouth movements. And for Sally, they did replacement masks because of the hair. And for the mayor, they had replacement eyes and mouths for each side.
Oh, okay. And each expression as well.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think like in a lot of like older stop motion, you would have to mold the entire face, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, like stuff like Rudolph and things like that.
Or going by Will Vinton or Aardman. Heck, even as far as Ray Harryhausen or a really deep cut Willis O'Brien.
Yeah. What did Willis O'Brien do?
This 90-year-old movie about a giant ape.
Oh.
King Kong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that turned 90 this year.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so... I think my favorite part of that scene, though, where she's giving him the soup, is how he opens the top of his head and scratches his brain, like, while he's thinking.
Oh, they even... there was this... there was actually a toy line for Night Before Christmas made by Tomy when the movie came out in 93.
Yeah.
And the bit where the head opens up to see the brain, that's actually integrated into the figure.
Oh, yeah. So we cut back to the townspeople. They've pretty much like given up on finding Jack. Like they looked everywhere, and then they can hear Zero barking, and then they're like, "Oh, like that's Zero, like he's back." And then here comes Jack on a snowmobile, pretty much dragging a bunch of Christmas stuff. Because I don't know, did he buy it? Did he steal it all? Like what? Where did he get all that? And but he's like, they're like, "Where have you been?" He's like, "I'll call a town meeting. I'll tell everyone about it, like immediately." And so town meeting starts. He starts singing a song. I think it's just called the town meeting song. Right?
Yeah.
This is not one of my favorite. This is probably my least favorite on the Nightmare Revisited. I forget who does it. It's like Sparkle Horse or something like that. It's like super like slow and weird, and it's one of the better songs in the movie, but just I didn't like the version.
Basically just listen to the original soundtrack.
Yeah. And nothing against them. I'm sure there's people that like that version. It's just not for me. But basically he's singing this song. He's like telling everybody about Christmas Town. They're just not getting it because they're too like Halloween coded. And like
there's this one character that this Harlequin demon with a 360-degree mouth.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure where that came from, but I think that's more of a Tim Burton original creature.
Yeah.
There's always like some Tim Burton original creatures.
Oh yeah, but it's like it's based off of something though. Like all of them are original, but he kind of did his own spin on stuff because like there was like such a thing as Harlequin demons, but he added like the 360 mouth right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a guy that's just like a devil guy. Kind of like in the cantina scene in Star Wars. There's just randomly a devil and a werewolf.
Yeah, that is if you're watching the original unaltered version with the werewolf.
Yes. So yeah, they're just not like getting the concept of, because they're just like, oh, like that sounds scary, and he's like, no, like it's not scary, but he's like, singing it and stuff. And he's like, finally, like, all right, I'll give them what they want. Like, he kind of says that to himself, and then he like starts talking about Santa, but he like describes him in a way that's gonna get them all like razzed up, like, oh, like he's this big monstrous beastly man like covered in red and stuff like that, and they call him Sandy Claus.
Yeah, and that part of the song where Jack leans towards the camera, I saw it in 3D, and because of me wearing the 3D glasses, it was one of those annual re-releases that they started doing. We saw Night Before Christmas in 3D, and I saw Jack coming out of the screen.
Yep. Just coming out of his cage and doing just fine. This was back when like 3D was huge. Like everyone was doing 3D everything. They made 3D TVs, 3D Blu-rays, and then it all died. So I mean, obviously there are still movies that get released in 3D. I think The Last Guardians was still in 3D, correct? And then Avatar 2. That I made sure to purchase a 3D IMAX for that, because before that it was the only one that was ever fully worth it, in my opinion. Like, but yeah. Did you enjoy it in 3D? I didn't get to see it in 3D.
Yeah. It's a unique experience to see it in the theater.
Yeah, I would like to see the movie in the theater. Maybe not in 3D, but I would like to see it in the theater if I get the chance. So we see Sally getting locked in her room by Dr. Finkelstein again. And
we forgot. We cut to Jack in bed, and you see him with different books, and one of those books was A Christmas Carol.
Okay.
And oddly enough, in the town meeting, you see the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
But the Grim Reaper also, some people think he also doubled as the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come.
Oh, okay. So it's like a little nod to other Christmas properties.
Yeah, and but there's also a Disney nod. You see the old hag. You see an old hag holding an apple, and that's supposed to be the queen from Snow White in her hag form.
Got it. All right. So now we see him get. Why is she's getting locked up? What happens in that scene?
I think he is basically recovered from getting poisoned.
Oh, that's right, because he's like has like an ice pack on his head and everything. But basically, right after he locks her in the room, Jack shows up and he wants to borrow some lab equipment from him.
Yeah,
because he wants to do some experiments to like figure out Christmas. And then we soon get like a montage of him doing these different experiments, and it's like really funny, like just the things he's trying to figure out. Like he's puts like a holly berry in a microscope and like crushes up a Christmas ornament into some like boiling liquid, and it starts glowing green, and he's like, it's like, oh, that's an interesting reaction, but what does it mean? He's just like...
And originally that montage was going to be a bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was going to be one experiment where he lights a candle and then does this two-sided chalk drawing of two different Santas.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, it had like crab claws.
Oh, okay. Putting the claws in Sandy Claus?
Yeah.
No.
And the music was different. It used music from The Witches of Eastwick.
Oh. Now, was that in the movie, or is that just for the test
It was temp music.
Got it.
Because,
Witches of Eastwick, was that a Danny Elfman?
No, that was composed by John Williams.
Okay. My favorite composer. So yeah, he's doing these experiments and stuff. Sally wants to help out, but she's locked in a room, so she, like most people does, she makes a care package, jumps out of the
Scare package.
scare package, good one. Jumps out of the 40-story window, but she's a doll that can just, and all her limbs come off, and she just, sews herself back together and heads over to Jack's house, sends the basket up. Not really sure what he's going to do with any of those things, because it's basically like a bottle that he opens, and like a smoke butterfly comes out, and then like a fish skeleton in resin. So I don't know how he's gonna figure out Christmas with that stuff. But then we get the song for Jack's Obsession, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is another one that I didn't like in the Nightmare Revisited version, but love it in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like the townspeople are singing like, okay, like something's wrong with Jack. And he's just like singing about how he's like so close to figuring out Christmas, but it's like all the pieces are there, but I can't put it together. And at the end, he comes to he has an epiphany, and he's like, I got it. Like, and like opens the window and announces to the whole town. He says, this year, Christmas will be ours.
Yeah. And, the recipe from the previous scene, from the scene prior, was shown outside at the exterior of the mansion when you get in line for Haunted Mansion Holiday.
Yeah.
And the part where Jack envisions himself as Santa, that's in the portrait hallway after the stretch room, and that's one of the changing portraits in that overlay.
Yes. So we get a scene where everyone's in line at the town hall so they can get a job. Like Jack's divvying out jobs to every member of Halloween Town. Then, oh no, I missed something. So after Sally gives him the basket and she's heading back to her house, she like picks up like a dandelion type thing, right?
Yeah.
And then she has this premonition where it changes into a beautiful Christmas tree, and then it bursts into flames. So it's kind of like, okay, like, she reads it as like this Christmas thing's a bad idea, and so on, right?
Yeah. And
let's pause for a second. Lana, come on.
Is it still recording?
Yeah, but I can cut that part out. And in case I did forget to cut it out, that was my cat making noise, and because she's all freaked out that all this equipment's down here, probably. But, all right, so she has the premonition, and she interprets it as this, like, Christmas thing's a bad idea, and it's going to go wrong. Basically, it's going to go up in flames, to be literal.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's, everyone's doing an assignment, and then we get introduced to the most opportunistic trio that this other representation of Halloween, the more Mischief Night side of Halloween.
Yeah. And what do you mean by that?
The kind of, the kind of troublemakers.
Oh, okay. So it's the trick part of Trick or Treat, basically.
Yeah.
So it's this is where we are introduced to Lock, Shock, and Barrel,
voiced by Paul Rubens, the late great Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman, Max from Flight of the Navigator, and RX-24 from the original version of Star Tours.
Yeah. So yeah, Pee Wee Herman. We got Catherine O'Hara doing double duty.
Yeah.
For voices.
And Danny Elfman.
Yep. So these are little trick-or-treaters. One's dressed as a witch, one's a skeleton, and one just has like a scary devil mask, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So their job is to when we want well when Jack's giving them the job, he does warn them. He says leave Oogie Boogie out of this, and then but we don't know what their job is yet. And so as they're walking away, this is where we get the song that tells what their job is, and they're supposed to kidnap Santa Claus.
Yeah. Song number 6.
Yep. Kidnap the Sandy Claus. And this is my favorite one from Nightmare Revisited. It's great in the movie, but there's a cover by the new metal band Korn that is like way better than it needs to be.
Yeah. And we get a little hints of this film's villain.
Oh, yeah. So then this is kind of introducing the main villain, Oogie Boogie. We get tiny hints of him. But it's basically just them singing about all the things that he'll do to Santa Claus once they give him to him.
But we do see a hint of him at the beginning, where he's the shadow in the moon.
Oh, yeah. So in the This Is Halloween song, there's a silhouette on the moon, and he sings, I am the shadow of the moon at night, filling your dreams to the brim with fright. And it's Oogie Boogie's silhouette.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what I love about this song is that like how dark they are and like what they're like singing about. Like they're like kidnap the Sandy Claus, beat him with a stick, lock him up for 90 years, see what makes him tick, chop him into bits, like all kinds of stuff. It's crazy. It's so like dark and twisted, but like in a funny way.
Yeah, and the fact that they have a walking bathtub.
Oh yeah, so at the end, like they're jump in the walking bathtub. Let's take that to the Christmas town. So yeah, they head off into the woods in their walking bathtub.
And then we cut back to the silhouette of Oogie, and you see some dice. And then a snake comes out, and that is and it kind of resembles the smaller snake in Beetlejuice.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one of 2 references to that movie.
Yep. Let's see. We get a scene of Sally trying to warn Jack about her premonition. He's just too like worked up in it, and but he's like, hey, like I have a job for you. Like everything's gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. By the way, I got a job for you. I want you to make my Sandy Claus outfit. So, and he has it's all sketched out and everything, and she agrees, but she's still like, okay, like I'm still not sure about this, but like I'll do it. Is it the same scene where Lock, Shock, and Barrel come back, or is this
a different scene? Is.
Yeah. So they come back with what they think is Santa Claus. They open the bag, and the Easter Bunny jumps out.
Yeah. Oops.
Yep. And he's like, that's not Santa Claus. Like I'm looking for the guy. Like, did you go through the door? And they're like, oh, we went through the door. He said, which door? There's more than one. And they're like, Santa Claus is in the one shaped like this, and he holds up a Christmas cookie of a tree. And they're like arguing, like, I told you that was the wrong one. And then so they go back and leave again, right?
Yeah.
Now this is where we
actually go back to Dr. Finkelstein, and he is actually making a replacement for Sally.
Oh, that's right. And he's like, oh, this one's not going to run out on me. And he's also, like, making one that looks like him, like, with, like, the duck mouth and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is where we get the next song, Making Christmas.
Yep. One of the bigger songs of the movie. If it's not This Is Halloween, then it's this one. Yeah.
I'd say this is, like, so Nightmare Before Christmas, it's the blending of 2 holidays. We get the main Halloween song, and this is our main Christmas song. And great song, in both versions of the soundtrack. It's done by Rise Against and the Nightmare Revisited. Super good. this whole sequence, we see how like distorted their version of Halloween is because they're making these toys, but they're making everything scary because that's all they know, you know?
Yeah.
And they're just getting everything wrong. Like they're making, Dr. Finkelstein's making reindeer, but they're all skeletons.
Yeah.
You know?
And then the vampire teddy bear, you see that throughout the mansion.
Oh, in
Haunted Mansion Holiday.
Yes.
In the place of the Raven.
Yeah, because there's in the regular Haunted Mansion, there's a raven that's you see throughout the ride, and some people say that it's supposed to represent the ghost host in a way.
Yeah, and it was also a reference to The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe.
Yep.
Gotta have that gothic horror.
Yep, famous Baltimore Ravens player Edgar Allan Poe.
You're talking about the poet.
Yes, I'm talking about the poet. Okay, so at this point in the rewatch, when I was taking notes, I fell asleep because I was exhausted. So I might be missing stuff after this because this is where my notes have ended. So towards the end of the song is when they show up with the real Santa, right?
Yeah, it's basically at the end.
Yeah, at the end of the song. And they're celebrating. They show up. We got Santa, and
he was originally going to be voiced by Vincent Price, but it was towards the end of his life.
Okay.
But they got Edward Ivory.
Oh, okay. So it's the same voice that's doing the narration at the very beginning.
It's basically someone, the behind-the-scenes guys found he's a local guy from the Bay Area.
Oh, okay.
Because most of the production was done in San Francisco.
Got it. So that's also where like a lot of Pixar stuff's done up there. And
yeah.
all like main house Disney animations done in Burbank.
Yeah, and some of the citizens of Halloween Town were voiced by Joe Ranft.
Oh, okay. And he did a bunch of Pixar voices. He was Heimlich, right?
Yeah, Heimlich, Lenny the Binoculars in Toy Story, Wheezy in Toy Story 2.
But he passed away, though.
Yeah, 2006 after Cars.
Got it. And it's at the end of Cars that there's the card about, like, in memoriam Joe Ranft.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, Santa's there. He's all tied up. Jack's like, don't worry, I got this. And then he gets carted off to Oogie Boogie. And this is where we get the Oogie Boogie song, right?
Yeah, but before that, before Santa gets carted off, he realizes something about him is missing, and then he looks at the hat and goes, "Of course, that's what I'm missing." Because the only thing missing on him was the hat.
So then he just takes Santa's hat, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You got to pretty much carry on the story part now.
Yeah.
And then I'll interject in.
Okay. We fully get introduced to Oogie Boogie. And boy, is he quite a show.
Yeah, he's basically just a giant, like, living potato sack is what he looks like.
Yeah. And voiced by Ken Page. And I can't believe I'm saying this. You remember him as the gator from All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Yes, we all remember him as that. That movie I barely remember seeing, but I know exists. And I know I've seen.
Yeah. And this it basically typical villain song about describing himself and basically sort of this Cab Calloway kind of guy.
Yeah. He's a bit of a hidey-ho man. I think that's what Cab Calloway's famous for. The hidey, 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 hidey. Like that type of big band music, basically. And that's kind of his musical number is kind of like that.
Yeah.
Very like 30s, like jazz influenced big band, like combined.
The Old Man on the Mountain in like Fleischer cartoon.
Yeah. Man, speaking of Cab Calloway, he was in one of those shorts.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also, circling back to Disney, this in Cab Calloway, there was this bit of animation Eric Goldberg did of the genie in Aladdin when he was doing the Cab Calloway thing.
Okay.
So we get, and it turns out it is Christmas Eve, and they're gonna set off, but Sally used fog juice to try to prevent the vision from happening.
Got it. Yeah. So she does try to sabotage it, but because she knows that it's going to turn out bad, and no one's listening to her. So yeah, she does fog juice, but just like in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, here comes Zero as the Deus Ex Machina of
this
of sabotaging Christmas.
And then they set off.
Yeah, so they got Zero's red nose can light the way, and he's at the front of the pack with the skeleton reindeer. Jack takes off.
And then we cut to, and this leads to the next song. Sally's song.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those songs that kind of, it almost feels very soothing, almost like taking a breather.
Yeah, it's tonally very different from some of the other ones. It's kind of there with Jack's Lament a little bit, but a little bit more stripped down. The Nightmare Revisited, done by Evanescence's Amy Lee, is beautiful, and so is the original too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we cut back to Jack, and then we get our third world of this movie, the real world.
Yes. So we get to see Jack doing Christmas out in the real world, and we slowly start to see the results of his version of Christmas, and just the kids getting scared and terrorized by the presents, and the parents getting terrorized by the presents and the decorations.
Yeah, the shrunken head and the giant snake, both are references to Beetlejuice.
Yep. Yeah.
All it's missing is a Harry Belafonte song, whether it be the Banana Boat song or Jump in the Line.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, do we cut back? Kind of cut back and forth between that and Santa with Oogie Boogie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the way Sally unstitched her leg to seduce Oogie.
Oh yeah, she kind of like holds her leg out to like kind of like.
But then you see her hands go down the rope and then cover Santa's mouth to keep him quiet, and then points him to the direction of where she is.
Yeah. Somehow she gets tipped off to the fact that the real Santa's in danger, and goes and tries to save him. Ends up does a pretty good job, but ends up getting captured herself. Correct?
Yeah, and also the fact that Oogie Boogie has an incredible inhaling power.
Oh yeah, he basically like Kirby's her, right?
Yeah. Well, considering as a gamer, and speaking of games. One part, this particular game got you excited because this was featured in it. Hence, what I'm holding right here.
Yes.
Kingdom Hearts. And I remember, you remember getting excited for that with the commercials when it aired in 2000, when those commercials aired in 2002. Especially when you see Jack Skellington on screen.
Yeah, and for how excited I got, I've still never played those games. But that's because now I just know how like convoluted the
plot is
and things like that.
It's very simple. The first one's pretty simple because after all, it is a journey where you never know who you run into next. And that was the tagline for the first one when it came out on the PS2.
Yes. So it was basically Square Enix type characters. It's not
just.
It was kind of like touted as Final Fantasy meets Disney, which it pretty much is, but it's not direct Final Fantasy characters, correct?
Yeah, there are some Final Fantasy cameos. Mostly from like 7 and a little bit of 8.
Okay.
In the first one, and we don't get like stuff from characters from like 9, 10, and 10-2 in Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah. No one from Final Fantasy
1 through 6.
39, whatever their number they're on now.
Yeah, nobody from like the early 2D ones.
Yeah.
With the exception of one from 6.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so Jack's causing all this havoc in the real world. People are starting to catch on. We see like a police dispatcher or 911 dispatcher like getting all these calls about like presents going crazy and stuff like that. And they're like, okay, like something like first it's like, all right, whatever you say, and then thinks it's like a prank, and then there's like, oh, okay, wait, if I'm getting this many calls, then something's up. And then we see like a military base getting armed up to shoot him out of the sky, and there's like searchlights and like they fire this like giant artillery shell at him, and he thinks that they're like celebrating him. They're like, they're thanking us for doing such a good job, and then like gets like obliterated by
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. And then like they can see everything happening in Halloween Town. They're like watching it like somehow through Halloween magic, I guess.
Yeah, it's similar to the pig in Black Cauldron.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't know about that. Still haven't seen it. But yeah, so they see him get shot down, and the mayor's like making an announcement that Jack's dead. But, it's kind of funny because how can you be dead if you're a literal skeleton?
And that comes into play later when we in a later scene.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. So is this where we get
yeah, we get the
poor Jack, right?
Yeah. Where he ended up in a graveyard.
Yeah, so he's like literally like it's very cinematic and like beautiful shot of him like literally in the arms of an angel, Sarah McLachlan style, like just kind of like limp, and this like statue of an angel as part of a tomb is holding him up, and he starts singing the song "Poor Jack," just like, oh, like I messed everything up. And just like with some of the other songs, it's him working through his thoughts and feelings in order to get to the epiphany where he's going to save the day, and this time actually save the day, as opposed to before where he makes everything worse.
Yeah.
And then another good song done by Plain White Tees and the of Hey Delilah fame. Hey There Delilah. On the Nightmare Revisited version.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then...
And we also did the fact that all graveyards in the real world lead back to Halloween Town.
Yeah, because he just full on opens a tomb and just like runs back to Halloween Town. Like, oh, all right. So I guess that's how you get there. Just like if you wander long enough in one of the holiday towns, you'll eventually get to the forest with all the different trees.
Yeah, basically Yeah, it's very insane.
It's kind of one of those like logic things. It's like, don't think too much about it. just accept it.
Yeah, just keep your suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, exactly. As you should with most fantasy movies.
Yeah, unless it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yeah.
With the ultimate twist.
Yeah. I mean, but that's not to say that you can't, like, keep the rules of a reality within a certain reality. Like, if you're 3 Lord of the Rings deep and then they just all of a sudden change something that doesn't make sense within that reality, then that's, like, where you can't be like, oh, well, it's fantasy, You don't have that excuse, because if you establish a reality, you have to stick with those rules.
Yeah.
Kind of like when they're just throwing new things in Star Wars and stuff like that. I'm not going to be too harsh on new Star Wars, but not a fan of Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
But I think people are way too hard on Last Jedi. I think that's the best of the new movies.
Because
Besides, the best of the new sequels, not Rogue One's the best new movie.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, and we get to, Jack somehow made it back to Halloween Town, and we come to the climax.
Yes. So he gets back to Halloween Town. It's time to save Santa and save Christmas. So he gets to, already figures out, like, okay, like, Oogie Boogie probably is part of this, and I shouldn't have trusted those kids, but...
Because you could tell earlier in the movie they had their fingers crossed.
Yeah. So how does he end up saving them? I know the ultimate end, like how the reveal of what Oogie Boogie really is, but I forget Jack
basically
role in that.
Yeah, he just switched places between Santa and Sally with himself, and relocated them somewhere else within the lair, and then Oogie is surprised, going, "What the?" And then pulls the thing down, and then sees Jack.
Oh yeah.
And then we did this line, "Jack, they said you were dead. You must be double dead."
Oh yeah, that's what you're referencing before. Like, a skeleton can't be dead. So at some point during the escape, a thread from Oogie Boogie's potato sack burlap skin gets caught in a fan or something like that, right?
Yeah, and then Jack pulled the thread.
Yes, and reveals that beneath the, like, burlap skin is just millions of bugs. So he's just like a bunch of bugs.
Yeah, and the fact that all those bugs are falling and it's in stop motion is insane.
Yeah.
And this is the same year as Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Which, that is a great example of good visual effects, Jurassic Park.
Yeah, because
I'd say, like, what's like a bad movie, like bad special effects movie from 1993.
I don't know. Some people say Super Mario Brothers, but
some people. I know you love that movie. I know that.
Yeah, because that came out months before Jurassic Park.
Yeah. So, Oogie Boogie is just a bunch of bugs, and he crumbles into pieces. Impressive special effects of doing falling objects in stop motion is incredible.
And there was, behind the scenes wise, there was an alternate version of the identity of Oogie Boogie.
Which was...
That it was really Dr. Finkelstein, and it was a Scooby-Doo kind of thing.
Oh, okay. So they would have pulled off his potato sack head.
Actually, it unraveled, revealing, and Dr. Finkelstein was using his hand to puppeteer the mouth.
Oh, okay. So he's in like a Oogie Boogie mech, basically.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, and that was in the original version, but Tim didn't like that one. If you've seen the holiday movies that made us.
Oh, okay. That's the Netflix special.
Yeah. Yeah, when they did a whole episode based on that.
Oh, okay. So, so Santa's rescued. Santa does, like, he thanks Jack, but also, like, scolds him, like, what were we thinking? Like, all right, I guess I gotta go fix Christmas now. And he does, correct?
Yeah.
But as a thank you to Jack, he gives a little Christmas magic to the residents of Halloween Town and makes it snow there.
Yeah, and that's part of the our final song in the movie, called the finale.
Yeah, it's the finale, and it's basically like a reprise medley of a bunch of the different songs, because we get a little bit of the residents saying, what's this about the snow falling. We get a little bit of the
This is Halloween.
And
the last part being basically Sally's song.
Yes, but as a duet with the two of them singing together. And they're like, hey, also, like, sorry for not believing you. Also, now I love you.
Yeah. And if you've been on Haunted Mansion Holiday in 2001 and or 2002, I cannot get the image of the snow-covered Spiral Hill with the 3 hitchhiking ghosts.
Oh.
But you do see a Lock, Shock, and Barrel in the forefront.
Okay.
But, wait a minute. Is there a ghostly present in between us?
Nope, because I don't know how to do visual effects.
That's okay. We just assume it's there because we have to keep the Haunted Mansion references.
Yeah. And the ghost will follow you home. Do you have any final thoughts on... Oh, yeah. The finale song is done by, in The Nightmare Revisited, done by the band Shiny Toy Guns, who I did get to see live during their, like, peak. During their one-hit wonder peak.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you have anything else to add on this movie?
This is a good movie to watch, whether it be on Halloween or Christmas.
Yeah, you're pretty much like fine watching this from September 1st to January 1st, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's on brand for that whole time of year. I will say I do agree with Ryan Gosling that the Disneyland Haunted Mansion Holiday should only be there during Christmas, because real Haunted Mansion should be there for Halloween, because it's scary. It's ghosts and stuff. Like, why is the most Halloween ride closed, like, not itself during Halloween? What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree, or do you think it should be the way it is, where it's...
I certainly agree. Yeah, Haunted Mansion Holiday is good, but I wish it didn't take up a whole chunk of the year.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, any final thoughts on the movie, though?
Give it a watch, and you will know what happens when two holidays meet. You might get a trick, or you might get a holiday treat.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching or listening. The last few episodes have been on video. Thank you for new followers in this new era. But continue to listen if you prefer to do that. Like, I know I do most of my podcasts audio, but hey, there's a new market, and I'd like to be a part of that too. But follow the show at Movies They're Pretty Good on Instagram. Also follow us on YouTube. And stick around for the next episode. Because it's going to be Christmas for the month of December, obviously. So, yep, stick around. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And have a good December. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Thanks. Bye.